Today, my topic is Tennessee Williams' drama A Streetcar Named Desire. We already discussed 3 scenes of this play. Today, scene 4. It is early morning and Stella looks very beautiful in the early morning sunlight. Her belly slightly bulging with new maternity, and she had a good sleep in the previous night, so she looks very beautiful. But Blanche has spent a sleepless night and her appearance entirely contrasts with Stella's. The morning after the poker night, Blanche rushes into her sister's bedroom, crying hysterically after her sister's name, as she is very much worried about her sister's safety and well-being. Blanche ensures that Stanley has left to get his car greased, and she tells Stella that she cannot believe how Stella could effect a reconciliation with Stanley after his violent and rude contact with her the previous night. And Stella tells Blanche that she is exaggerating the minor quarrel between Stanley and her. There was nothing serious about it, particularly when men are drinking and playing poker. Stanley had become as good as a lamp when she came back to him and was really ashamed of his conduct. But Blanche feels that Stanley's repentance does not adequately compensate for the damages he has caused Stella. At this, Stella explains that Stanley always smashed things. And Blanche says that in her opinion, Stella had married a madman. And Blanche is much perplexed at the matter-of-fact behavior of Stella, and she wants Stella to pull herself together and face the facts. Blanche feels that Stella has soiled her reputation and cultured upbringing by sleeping with such a poor as Stanley. So she begs Stella to think of unshackling herself from such a horrible and subcultured man. But Stella ridicules her sister's way of looking at things. Blanche is unable to believe her ears, and she says that she will try a way out to deliver Stella from the clutches of Stanley. She hopes to effect it with the help of a gentleman called Shep Huntley, a multimillionaire of Texas. She thinks that he would help the sister out of the present fix by offering them some money with which they would set up a shop and thus stand on their own legs. She rushes to the phone to get connection to West Union. Stella laughs at the strange behavior of Blanche, and to have more fun, she suggests Blanche to dial 0 for operator who will connect her to the desired place. And Blanche considers her sister's proposal for a while, then hooks the phone down and goes for a pencil and a piece of paper to make out her message to Shep Huntley. Stella laughs at this and asks Blanche not to become so ridiculous. Blanche, who has made up her mind to think of some other way to get out of the present fix in which she and Stella is, requests her sister not to laugh at her and tells her that she needs money frantically to think of some way out. Then she opens her purse and finds only a meager 65 cents in it, which discourages her. And Stella tries to cool Blanche down by offering her $5. But Blanche refuses to accept the offer when Stella insists on Blanche accepting the money. Blanche says that she would rather take to the streets than to accepting Stanley's money. But again Stella tries to convince her sister that Stanley is not that bad as Blanche would have him to be. And perhaps she had seen him in one of his worst moods of the previous night. Unwilling to accept the argument of Stella on behalf of her husband, Blanche indulges in an angry tirade against Stanley. She calls him common, ordinary, and plain. Not contented with this, she calls him bestial, adding that he acts like an animal, as an animal habits, eats like one, moves like, talks like one. There is even something subhuman, something not quite to the stage of humanity yet. Yes, something ape-like about him. Blanche describes Stanley as the survivor of the Stone Age. Thousands and thousands of years have passed him right by, and he remains the same primitive. Stanley, who has already written and heard of what has been said about him by Blanche, now makes his entry as if he is written just then. He calls out his wife Stella, who rushes to meet him. Even in the presence of Blanche, they embraced each other. So, this scene highlights the contrast between Stella and Blanche further. Stella's reconciliation to Stanley is quite practical, and she has psychological insight into the aberrations of her husband when he is drunk of temperamental. Scene 5. Blanche is seated in the bedroom, fanning herself with a palm leaf as she reads over a just completed letter. Suddenly, she burst into a peal of laughter. Surprised at Blanche's laughing to herself, Stella asks her what she is laughing at. Blanche says that she is laughing at herself for the bundle of lies that she has let loose in her letter to Shep and Lake on her rich admirer and oil baron of Dallas. Shep should not be surprised if she suddenly lands on Dallas. She asks Stella's opinion about her skill in spinning a tale of lies. While Blanche is reading her letter addressed to Shep to Stella, a disturbance is heard at the Hubble's apartment upstairs. Stella explains to Blanche by saying that Eunice is having a quarrel with her husband Steve. Eunice accuses Steve of having illicit relations with a blonde girl, and she threatens to call the vice squad. Steve denies the accusation, but he has to face the attack of household utensils used as missiles. Eunice rushes downstairs, threatening that she would summon the police to punish her husband. A moment later, Steve comes down and nursing a bruise on his forehead. He learns from Stanley that Eunice has gone to the Four Deuces. He timidly runs after his wife. In short a while, Eunice is climbing the stairs, supported by her husband. And here's Stanley's confrontation with Blanche. Stanley, who has just come into the house, mocks at Blanche, saying that she has not heard anything new which she has not heard before, that is in Laurel. Then he noisily jerks open the bureau drawer and slams it shut and throws his shoes in a corner. Blanche mockingly tells Stanley that he must have been born under the sign of Aries. For those who are born under the sign love to bang things around. Stella intervenes and tells her sister that Stanley was born under the sign of Capricorn, that is the goat. Stanley, who wants to pay Blanche back in the same coin, asks her under what sign she was born. Blanche proudly says that she was born under the sign Virgo, that is the Virgin. Stanley, with a view to snub Blanche's false airs of superiority, asks her if she knows someone by name Shaw who has met her at Hotel Flamingo in Laurel? Blanche says that Shaw must have mistaken her for somebody. She does not frequent such cheap hotels as Flamingo. Even as she makes a protest to Stanley, she becomes nervous and pale. Stanley says that Shaw goes to Laurel on a regular basis and he will verify matters connected with Blanche and confirm. Blanche becomes totally shaken. So on that next scene itself, Blanche is going to confess herself to Stella. When Stanley leaves, Blanche rises from her chair and she seems faint and looks about her with an expression of almost panic. She asks Stella if she has heard people talking about her very badly. Stella replies in the negative. At this, Blanche herself comes out with a confession. She tells Stella that there was a good deal of gossip about her in Laurel. She led a loose life for the last 2 years or so after Bellerive had started slipping through her fingers. In order to seek protection and consolation, she had sought the company of men one after another who made love to her much against her will. But she is afraid that she may not be able to lure men any longer, as her physical charms are fast fading, as she would soon be well over 30. And in order to revive the dropping spirits of Blanche, Stella offers her coke. While Stella is pouring the coke in the glass, Blanche becomes emotional and hysterical all of a sudden. Clutching Stella's free hand with a moaning sound, she presses it and begins to speak in a choked voice, telling her that she would not stay for long and force Stanley throw her out. She would on her own leave soon. Stella asked Blanche to stop her foolish talk. Blanche then tells Stella that she has become interested in Mitch. As Mitch is coming at 7, she is just feeling nervous about their relation. She is afraid that she is aging fast and will soon become about 30. Men quickly lose their interest with women who are above that age. So, she has not made Mitch know her real age. Stella asks Blanche why she is very sensitive about her age. Blanche has made quite an impression on with Mitch as quite a young and pretty woman. She is very keen on getting Mitch. She wants to marry him so that she can be independent and leave her sister's home and not pose any problem to anyone. Stella assures her that she will be successful in winning the hands of Mitch. Stanley comes round the corner with a drink and calls out Stella, who goes out and joins him. Before leaving, Stella advises Blanche not to drink any more. Now Blanche is left alone in the apartment. She feels somewhat drowsy, but she drives her sleep away. Just then, a young man appears through the curtains and Blanche regards him with interest and asks him what she can do for him. When the young man informs her that he is collecting subscription for the newspaper, The Evening Star, she tells him that she is not the lady of the house. She is her sister from Mississippi. When he wants to go away, she looks at him and tells him that he looks like a young prince from the Arabian Nights. Advancing towards him quickly, she misbehaved with that young man. The young man leaves with a dashed look. Just then, Mitch appears with a bunch of roses for Blanche. She bows to her and offers the roses to her. Blanche greets him in return with a gentle bow. So, this scene scene underscores the worsening mental state of Blanche, and she is very conscious of her advancing age, and so she is very eager to encourage Mitch's suit to have a safe anchor for her troubled soul. And in this scene, Blanche, who is fed on illusion and idealism, is not able to understand that the domestic quarrels of couples in Elysian fields are nothing but it is like a tempest in a teacup. While Stella and Eunice enjoy happiness and security in their respective spheres, Blanche is chasing shadows instead of substance. She is hoping to win Mitch for her, but will she succeed in that is the question that arises in the minds of the reader. Here's scene 6. Blanche and Mitch return to Stanley's apartment in the small hours of the morning after spending time in the amusement park. But both seem to be disappointed as to the outcome of their romantic outing. He adds somewhat heavily that he has a feeling that she could not get much pleasure from their evening outing. Blanche says in an apologetic tone that it was she who spoilt it. Then later, Mitch consoles her. Blanche wishes Mitch to come into the apartment with her, as Stanley and Stella have not yet returned, and suggests that they would have a sleep. They admire each other, and Mitch lifts Blanche up lightly off the ground, telling that she is light as a feather. And Blanche enjoys his compliment with affected shyness. Then Mitch inquires where Stanley and Stella have gone. Blanche informs him that they have gone with the Hubbles. Mitch then comes out with a proposal that some night they should all go out together, but Blanche turns down the idea, informing him that she is staying there just for the sake of Stella, who is going to have a baby soon. Had it not been so, she would be the last person to stay with a man like Stanley. She says that Stanley offended her very rudely. She is forced to stay with him against her wishes because her salary as a teacher is barely sufficient for her living expenses. On these reasons, she tells Mitch she is staying with her brother-in-law's house quite helplessly. She then asks Mitch if Stanley has expressed any adverse opinion about her to him. Mitch assures her that Stanley does not hate her, but Blanche's opinion about Stanley is different from Mitch. And she points out to Mitch that if Stanley does not hate her, he would not choose to insult her the way he does now with her. She views that Stanley's dislike of her as of a perverse kind. And quite suddenly, Mitch asks Blanche about her age. This query makes her nervous, but she asks him why he is very keen on knowing her age. Mitch at this tells her that he had talked to his mother about her, and his mother had asked about her age, and so he is asking for the information. Blanche is not able to believe a statement. Then Mitch informs his mother's concern for him and that she is keen that her son settles in life before she dies. Blanche then says that Mitch will feel very lonely after his mother's death. Blanche then tells him that she herself feels lonely because she lost someone whom she loved very much. She then tells him how she at the age of 16 married the young boy whom she loved much. Soon after, her husband wanted her to help him in some mysterious way, but she failed to do so. Then one day she found to her dismay that her husband was a homosexual. But she pretended that she had not noted it. Later, she, her husband and his friend drove the Moon Lake Casino very drunk and laughing all the way. At the casino, they danced the Varsoviana, some music. In the middle of the dance, suddenly her husband left her. A little later, she found that he had shot himself dead. This was the result of her speaking out to her husband about her discovery of his homosexual relations with his friend. Since then, she feels so lonely and so guilty. Mitch then consoles her, saying that she needs somebody in her loneliness like him. He wishes that they could marry, and Blanche embraces him tightly amidst giving in to sobbing and saying that God seems to have heard her prayer. Blanche hopes that both herself and Mitch need each other, as both of them are alone. But she is afraid of Stanley's ill will towards her, as she knows that the Stanley and Mitch are fast friends and former colleagues in the army, and she is afraid that Stanley may have set afloat rumors about her. But Mitch assures her that she need not worry about Stanley, for he is not that wicked to spoil her life. With Mitch's assurance to marry her, it appears that Blanche will have a bright future. Here's scene 7. The curtains are drawn apart and a table is set for a birthday supper with cake and flowers. Stella is busy completing the arrangements for the birthday supper to celebrate her sister Blanche's birthday. She tells her husband Stanley that she is making all these arrangements for the sake of Blanche, whose birthday falls that day. Stanley mockingly inquires where Blanche is. Stella tells him that she is taking a hot bath. Stanley mocks at Blanche having a hot bath when the temperature is 100 degrees. But Stella tells him that a hot bath quite refreshes Blanche by cooling her off for the evening. Stanley then calls Stella to come and sit by him, for he has something important to reveal to her regarding her big sister, that is Blanche. So here Stanley is going to reveal the past life of Blanche. Stella accuses Stanley has been doing everything to insult Blanche. She wants him to realize that Blanche is quite sensitive and her elder sister, and she herself grew up under very different circumstances than he did. So she wants him not to pick on Blanche, but Stanley does not mind her words. He reminds his wife that Blanche had the audacity to call him common. He points to her that Blanche herself is no better, for she has been duping everyone in Elysian Fields with a pack of lies. But he has found out everything about her past. Blanche, as she makes every one of them believe, is not a virgin. After the loss of Bellerive, she had moved to Hotel Flamingo in Laurel and had affairs with strangers. The hotel management became vexed with her and turned her out. She then moved to another town and served as a call girl to the soldiers. She became so very notorious that the mayor of the town also expelled her. Eventually, she was fired from her school by the superintendent for her sexual involvement with a 17-year-old boy. Stanley assures Stella that the above information about Blanche is genuine and it has been collected by an employee of his firm, a supply man who passes through Laurel on business trips. Stella defends Blanche, saying that she is somewhat flighty and Stanley must take into account the shattering of her illusion with the suicide of her young husband, who was found to be a homosexual. And Stanley then asks Stella if she is expecting company for the supper. Stella tells him that they had asked Mitch to come over for cake and ice cream. At this, Stanley informs her that Mitch would not be attending the party that night, for he has already told him everything about Blanche. Mitch is his colleague, and further both of them had served in the same military outfit, so he did not like his best friend to be duped by Blanche, whose walking bundle of lies and pretensions. Stella is shocked to hear this news, and she tells him in a choked voice that Blanche was expecting Mitch to marry her. But Stanley says that Mitch will not marry her now, as he had known her real character. Blanche is still through her bath, singing to herself, unmindful of the damaging that has been done by Stanley. And Stanley further informs Stella that Blanche will not be staying with them beyond Tuesday. Just to ensure that he had bought her a bus ticket, Stella protests that Blanche would not go on a bus, and further it will not be proper to throw her out like a hot brick. It will be very hard on poor Blanche, but Stanley is not willing to relent, and he says that Blanche's future has already been mapped out for her. From the bathroom, Blanche is singing a tune. Stanley becomes impatient with her and asks her to get out of the bathroom. And Blanche comes out of the bathroom with a gay peal of laughter, but as Stanley crosses past her, a frightened look, almost a look of panic, appears in her face. He does not look at her but slams the bathroom door shut as he goes in. His rough conduct is a calculated and deliberate insult to his sister-in-law Blanche. However, she picks up a hairbrush and tells Stella that she feels fine after a long hot bath. She feels quite good and cool and rested. But when Blanche looks at the pale face and depressed looks of her sister, doubts that something has happened while she was bathing. And she asks Stella what has gone wrong. But suppressing her grief, Stella replies Blanche that nothing has gone wrong. Blanche does not believe her sister's words, for she has smelt that something has really happened, causing Stella's much misery. Of course, Blanche has guessed right. So in this scene underscores the deepening crisis in the life of Blanche. Stanley spoils with sadistic pride of the joy of Stella, who is arranging the birthday supper by telling her about the sordid background of her sister Blanche in Laurel. He exposes all the lies and pretensions of Blanche. He ruins Blanche's chance of marrying Mitch by telling him about Blanche's disreputable life in Laurel. He also tells Stella that Mitch is not likely to attend the party. He has even bought Blanche a bus ticket to leave for Tuesday. Blanche hopes that she peacefully settle down with Mitch. In fact, she thanks God for being kind to her so very quickly. But by ruining her chance of marrying Mitch, The scene reveals the vengefulness of Stanley and the sliding of the fortunes of Blanche downhill. So overall, this scene focuses the clash of cultures of the Du Boises versus Stanley Gawosky. Here remaining scenes of the story I will explain in my next session. Thank you.